Why hello boys and girls. Today we are going to talk about my recent purchase, the Canon Powershot G7X Mark III. Now last year when I started to take vlogging seriously, I was doing some camera shopping. There's so many cameras to choose from to shoot your vlogs. I stuck with the Canon products because I'm very comfortable with the Canon products. In the past I've owned this Canon Powershot A4000 and I also owned the Rebel T6. So with all these fancy cameras that Canon currently has, I've narrowed down to two cameras that I liked. I'm not going to spend like $1,600 on just the body of the Canon cameras at the moment. They're DSLRs. I'm not advanced yet, but down the road I see myself going to buy one of those. But right now I just want something to start with so I could learn. The two cameras I'm looking at is the M50 and the G7X. Now with this G7X Mark III, when it first came out, I believe around July 2019, it had terrible reviews. Like everyone complained about its autofocus and they said it's like a downgrade compared to the Mark II. And people are like, if you're thinking about getting a Mark III, you might as well just get the Mark II. So I look into the Mark II, and the comparison with the Mark II and Mark III is Mark III is capable of doing 4K and also has a mic input. So if I buy like the Mark II, I can't put an external mic and I have to deal with the mic that's built into it. Usually built-in mics on cameras are generally like the greatest, but it's better than nothing. And the fact that the Mark II only does up to 1080p, I'm kind of scared that eventually we're all going to move on to 4K. It seems like we're not there yet for some reason, even though 4K has been out for a while, but it seems like 1080p is like acceptable for vlogs today, and maybe until like 1080p is going to be like obsolete just like the 720p. So it might be overkill just to get the 4K, but I'm just so scared of buying the Mark II and then all of a sudden now 4K is the standard. So ultimately I ended up buying the M50. I'm very happy with my purchase and it's a really awesome camera. So it's Black Friday week and I kept seeing this camera like taunting me and like all these ads. It's $750 MSRP, but it's $100 off for Black Friday for most of the retailers. And also with the Mark III being advertised, they also advertise the Mark II. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, is this Canon's like marketing ploy? It's like everyone like knew that this Mark III sucks, so buy this Mark II, which is cheaper and better. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So I looked deeper into the Mark III, and the one thing I've overlooked when I did my camera shopping last year is the firmware updates. I didn't care to look at like what updates they have. All I see is what's in front of me. And Canon, with this Mark III, they actually did two crucial updates. This came out around July 2019, and then in August 2019, they came out with a firmware update to help out with the autofocus. Now autofocus is a lot better because like the autofocus is slow and it takes a while. It took like almost like 10 seconds to finally like focus on like the subject, but now it's a lot quicker. And then sometime late 2019 they add the ability to do 24 frames per second, and that is really crucial for filmmakers. The standard for North America is 30 frames per second, but with 24 frames per second it adds like a cinematic feel when you watch the videos, and I really love it. Most of my videos that are recorded is 24 frames per second. And it's a crime when this first came out, this didn't have 24 frames per second. So a lot of like, you know, advanced like filmmakers and stuff like that like are really turned off about this camera. But late 2019, another firmware happened and they added the 24 frames per second. So after checking out the firmware updates, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Now with the G7X, it's classified as advanced point and shoot. It's not a mirrorless camera or a DSLR camera, but it has most functions that a DSLR or a mirrorless camera has. So people have described this as having a DSLR camera in your pocket. Now, as I mentioned before, it has a microphone port. You can plug in your external microphone into this camera, but the thing is like it doesn't have like a hot shoe or a cold shoe for you to mount your camera. You have to buy like a rig or something extra so you can mount your microphone. But the options there, or you could use its microphone up here, which is pretty decent. And yes, it has flash, so you push the button here, got this ET head looking like thing up here. You know, with the articulating arm you can flip this up So you could do your selfie shots, or you could do your vlogging like this. And you can angle this anywhere, so you could do your low shots. And this is how far this arm goes. For some reason, like, I didn't know what this like cutouts here. It looks like it's the shape of an SD card. It's like, does it hold like an extra SD card? But I don't think it does, because if you're gonna close this down, you might damage, like, you know, the screen here. So I don't know. I thought it was like kind of weird. I like the feel of this. It has like the rubbery, rugged texture to it, and it has weight to it. So it feels very expensive, because it is expensive. So with that said, let's go outside and test this bad boy out. Alright, so here I'm in my park here, recording currently at 1080p, 24 frames per second. It's pretty lively here for Thanksgiving. People playing soccer, just chilling with their family, and I'm over here with my camera. Awesome. Now I'm currently recording on 4K with 24 frames per second. With my M50, the reason why I didn't use 4K that much is because the current lens that comes with is not really good with the focusing on the 4K, so you have to buy a better lens for it. And ultimately I've been using 1080p mostly just because it's more efficient. You know, the file is a bit smaller and it looks just as good. So I never used the 4K that much with my M50. So far with 4K, you know, I don't see any focusing issues, so that's a plus. Maybe I should start using 4K more, so who knows. I mean, with my M50, I did buy the lens to use the 4K, but I don't know, we'll have to see. And keep in mind, I'm holding with this with my hand, so I'm a little bit jittery because I got some coffee. So looks like the image stabilization is really good. I'll spot a little friend here. Let me see if I can capture him. Just chilling. Yeah, I lost him. Alright, I'm back on 1080p. If you notice when I was zooming in on that squirrel, like the image stabilization, it gets weaker and weaker. But I think that's generally how it is for most cameras anyways. This also has a built-in ND filter. Usually with like other cameras like my M50, like I have to get like extra like ND filters for certain situations, but this one's built in, so I want to try this out. So currently right now I have ND filter on, and you already can tell like the image is a lot better. It's not as exposed, and this is me on 1080p, and let me try it on 4K to see how it looks. Alright, so I'm on 4K of 24 frames per second with the ND filter on, and yeah, it makes the picture a whole lot better. It's not as exposed. Definitely going to use this feature a lot more. I mean, with my M50, like I have to manually put the ND filters on, but at least I like have like more control of the light. But this is just as good. It's really awesome that it's built in this camera. Alright, I'm back on 1080p with the ND filter on. I'm gonna go in this area here, check out the people playing soccer. With 1080p, you could do up to 120 frames per second, so you do a lot of cool slow-mo shots. See if I can get some good captures here. Yeah, it was too late. They just ended the game, so I couldn't capture any cool shots here. So I get to see some people playing some basketball, so hopefully we get some cool shots before they pack it up. I was about to like record the guys playing basketball, and I want to do like the 120 frames per second so I could do like cool slow-mo shots. But I have an interesting message from my camera. So when I try to record, I see this little icon here. When you try to record, it tells you, cannot record. Camera temperature currently too high. Turn off camera to cool faster, or use a lower movie quality setting. So I probably shot around like 15 to 20 minutes under 4K. So my camera doesn't feel that it's overheating, but the battery is overheating. So that's probably what the sensor is. It's based off the battery maybe. I'm not really too sure, but that's one of the reasons why, like, you know, 4K is like kind of sucks with Canon, because of the whole overheating issue. You can't use it too long.
Completely forgot about it because I barely use 4K with my M50. So maybe 4K isn't a thing after all. I mean, probably for small increments, I guess. I'm not too sure. So fortunately, right now I can't do the 120 frames per second. I might do it like by the time I get home. Maybe it'll cool down. I'll probably do some random shots under 120 frames per second.
Yeah, I'm at my house. Camera's cooled down, so this is currently 120 frames per second. So overall, I enjoyed using the G7X. Most of the functions I use on the M50, I could use on this camera. It does suck with the whole overheating thing with the 4K, but most cameras have that issue, and even with the smartphones as well. I think unless you want to shell out like those $2,000 like DSLR cameras that can handle it, like these mid-range cameras, like there's limitations with the 4K. But like I said before, like 1080p is just as fine when you're doing vlogging. So like you really shouldn't worry about the 4K. Now the question I'm pretty sure you guys have for me is like, did I regret buying the M50 instead of the G7X? Now I realize that the whole firmware update. Me personally, I do love the M50 and I'm glad I chose the M50. And if I have the choice again, knowing that there's a firmware update that deals with the autofocus and the 24 frames per second and all that stuff, I would still choose the M50 anyways. The best analogy I could come up with is like, it's kind of like, the computer tower and a laptop. The computer tower, it's big, but you can customize almost anything in there. With the laptop, there's like limitations. You can only customize the RAM and the hard drive. It's basically the comparison I have with the M50 and the G7X. The M50, I could swap out lenses. There's a hot shoe built in, so I could put my external microphone on here. With the G7X, you're fixed with this lens. You can't add a different lens on here. It does have a mic jack, but you would need like an extra device to mount it. The G7X is very portable, very convenient. With the M50 is very flexible, can handle most situations. But the G7X to me is a really good secondary camera. If I don't feel like carrying my M50, my external mic, and all the other bells and whistles, I can just carry this with me and do what I need to do. Well, that's it with my review on the Canon Powershot G7X Mark III. If you have any questions about this camera, feel free to post on the comments below. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.